The lonely cabin, the man walked slowly through the forest, the sound of dry leaves crunching under his boots. He had been searching for a quiet place far from the noise of cities, far from people, far from everything that reminded him of his old life. After months of looking, he finally found it. A lonely cabin deep in the woods. It looked abandoned, its wooden walls dark from age, the windows dusty, the roof sagging a little under the weight of time, but to him it felt perfect. It was away from roads, away from towns, away from anyone who might disturb his peace. He smiled softly as he placed his hand on the door. The wood was rough and cold, yet it felt like the start of something new. Inside the cabin, the air was thick with dust. Old furniture stood in corners covered with white sheets. The smell of damp wood filled his nose. There was silence. Not the kind of silence one hears in the city, but a heavy silence that made even his own breath sound too loud. He thought it was peaceful, but part of him also felt uneasy. The first night he lit a small fire in the fireplace. The flames crackled and danced, throwing shadows across the walls. He sat in an old chair listening to the forest outside. The wind whispered through the trees, an owl called in the distance. It felt calm. Yet the longer he sat, the more he noticed small things. A strange creak from under the floor. A low hum that seemed to come from nowhere. He told himself it was just the old cabin settling. As he prepared for sleep, he walked across the wooden floor. One board felt softer than the rest, as if it had been stepped on too many times. He pressed his foot down and heard a faint metallic echo beneath. He paused, listening, but the sound faded. He shook his head. Deciding not to think too much that night, he dreamed of the cabin. In his dream, the floor opened and a staircase led down into the earth. He saw shadows moving in the dark, eyes glowing faintly and voices whispering his name. He woke with a start, sweat on his forehead. The fire had burned down to embers. The cabin was cold, and the strange silence pressed against him again. In the morning, he tried to forget the dream. He opened the windows to let light in, cleaned dust from the table, and unpacked his few belongings. But as he moved the old rug near the center of the room, he noticed the floor beneath was marked. The wood seemed cut in a square shape. His heart beat faster. He knelt down and brushed the dust away, and there it was. A hidden door built into the floorboards. He ran his fingers over the edge. The wood was old but strong, and at the center was a small metal lock. Strange symbols were carved around it. Not letters he knew, not any language he had seen. They curved like flowing lines, glowing faintly when the light touched them. He pulled his hand back quickly. His skin tingled as if the door was alive. For the rest of the day, he tried to focus on normal tasks. Gathering firewood, fixing a broken chair, exploring the forest around the cabin. But no matter what he did, his thoughts kept returning to that door. The dream, the sound, the symbols. It was as if the cabin was trying to tell him something. That evening, the wind grew stronger. Rattling the windows, the trees groaned as if in pain. He sat by the fire again, staring at the floor. He thought of why he came here, to find peace, to be alone, yet here he was, feeling less alone than ever, feeling watched. He told himself it was nonsense, just his imagination. But deep down he knew the cabin held a secret. The fire dimmed as he closed his eyes. But even before sleep took him, he could hear it again. The faint metallic echo beneath the floor. Steady, patient, as if something below was waiting for him. The hidden door. The next morning the man woke early. The forest outside was calm. Sunlight slipped through the trees and painted long shadows on the ground. The cabin looked peaceful. Yet his eyes were fixed on the floor where the hidden door waited. No matter how much he tried, he could not ignore it. He pushed the rug aside again and stared at the square cut into the wood. The lock shimmered faintly. As if it was breathing with the light, he bent lower. Touching the edge with his fingertips, the wood felt colder here. Almost frozen, he tried to pull it open, but the lock held it tight. He searched the cabin for tools. An old hammer, a rusty chisel, even a bent nail, but nothing worked. Every strike bounced back with a dull sound. He should have felt frustration, but instead he felt curiosity growing like fire. The strange markings around the lock drew his eyes again and again. He traced them with his hand, and the symbols glowed faintly, sending a shiver up his arm. As the day went on, the man began to hear things. Faint whispers like voices behind the door. Sometimes he thought it was the wind, but when he pressed his ear to the wood, he could almost make out words. Not English, not any human language. Yet his heart understood a tone. It was not friendly, it was pleading, calling him to open. That night he could not sleep, the fire burned low, and every time he closed his eyes he saw the glowing lock. He dreamed of stairs leading down into endless tunnels, of machines humming under the ground, of eyes watching him from the dark. When he woke, his hands were trembling, but his mind was made up. He had to know what was below. He searched the forest for stronger tools, chopping through fallen logs, digging in the soil, until he found an old iron bar buried near the cabin. Strange how it was there, as if someone before him had also tried to open the hidden door. He carried it back and jammed it against the lock. The wood groaned, the floor shook faintly, and the lock cracked but did not break. Exhausted, he sat back, sweat on his forehead. He stared at the markings, the glow stronger now, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. He whispered to himself, "Who built this? Why here?" His voice sounded small in the heavy silence. The next evening, the forest grew strange. The birds stopped singing, the wind died, the air pressed heavy on his chest, as if the whole world was holding its breath. He lit the fire, but it did little to chase the cold rising from the floor. He looked at the trapdoor again, and this time the glow of the symbols filled the whole room. He knelt down and touched the lock again, but instead of cold, it felt warm. Alive. His skin burned, but he could not pull away. The metal shifted, changing shape under his hand. The markings lit up like fire, and with a heavy thud, the lock released. The man stumbled back, his heart racing. The trapdoor creaked open a little. A thin line of black air seeped through, colder than night, carrying a faint metallic smell. The sound rose again from below. Not whispers this time, but a deep hum. Steady and endless, he leaned over, holding a lantern. The light revealed a narrow staircase spiraling down into the ground. The walls lined with strange metal, smooth and glowing with the same symbols. It was not human work. It was something older, something hidden. Fear battled curiosity inside him. Every instinct told him to close the door and never return. But another voice inside whispered that he had already gone too far. He took a long breath, tightened his grip on the lantern, and placed one foot on the first step. The stair groaned beneath him, the sound echoing deep into the unseen darkness below. The air felt heavy, the glow from the walls brighter with each step, as if the place was awakening, waiting for him. For the first time since coming to the cabin, the man realized he was not alone. Something was down there, something that had been waiting a long, long time, and he was about to meet it. The descent, the man stood at the edge of the stairway, the lantern in his hand trembling slightly. Below him stretched darkness that seemed alive. The glow of the strange symbols along the walls pulsed like veins. Each beat echoing in his chest, he swallowed hard, but his curiosity burned hotter than his fear. He took his first step. The stair groaned under his weight. The sound carried down into the unseen depths. The silence of the forest above was gone, replaced with a low hum that rose from beneath the earth. It felt like the place itself was breathing. The air grew heavier as he descended, each step colder than the last. The walls of smooth metal glimmered faintly. The symbols shifted as he passed. Flowing like liquid light, he ran his hand over them, and they responded with warmth almost like skin. He pulled his hand back quickly, his heart pounding faster. He counted his steps, 20, 30, 50, but the staircase kept winding. The lantern flickered as if it wanted to die. Shadows twisted and stretched. Sometimes he thought he saw shapes moving ahead, but each time he raised the light there was nothing, just the endless spiral. At last his boots touched solid ground. He stepped into a vast chamber. The ceiling arched high above, the air humming with hidden power. His lantern light revealed machines lining the walls, covered in dust yet glowing faintly with blue light. Wires and pipes ran like veins across the floor. This was no basement. This was something ancient, something alien. In the center of the chamber stood a massive structure, shaped like a pod. Its glass cracked and fogged. Strange liquid swirled inside. The glow from within was soft, almost like a heartbeat. He stepped closer, his breath shallow. His reflection trembled on the glass, but behind his reflection he saw movement. He wiped away the dust and his hand froze. Inside the pod lay a figure, tall with strange skin that shimmered between colors. The body thin but powerful, the face unlike anything human, yet with eyes closed as if sleeping. The hum in the room grew louder. Machines stirred as if awakened by his presence. He stepped back, but the ground vibrated. Lights along the walls flared brighter. The pod's glow pulsed faster. The alien inside twitched, its fingers pressing weakly against the glass. Fear surged through him, but so did wonder. He whispered to himself, "What are you?" His voice cracked in the heavy chamber. The alien's eyelids fluttered. For one breathless moment he thought it would open its eyes, but then the hum sank lower. The light dimmed, and the pod grew still again. The man's thoughts raced. Why was it here? Who had locked it away, and why beneath a simple wooden cabin in the woods? He stepped around the pod, noticing strange marks carved into the floor, symbols like those on the lock above, forming a circle around the machine. He felt it was not protection for the pod, but protection from the pod. He touched one of the symbols on the ground and felt a sharp sting shoot up his arm. He stumbled back, the lantern swinging wildly. For a second, the entire chamber lit up, and in that flash he saw something else. Shapes standing in the shadows, tall, unmoving, watching, but when the light steadied, the shapes were gone, only empty walls remained. His chest tightened, sweat ran down his face. He wanted to run back up the stairs, but when he turned, he saw the staircase had sealed. The trapdoor above had closed, no way out. He was trapped in the chamber. The hum grew louder again. Vibrating through his bones, the pod shook violently. Cracks spread across its glass. Liquid spilling onto the floor. The alien inside pressed harder, its chest rising and falling, as if waking from a long sleep. The man raised his lantern. Light trembling on the breaking pod, he whispered again. Softer this time. What are you? But deep inside he already knew. This was not just an alien body. It was a prisoner. Locked away for reasons he was never meant to discover. The forgotten chamber. The man stood frozen in the middle of the chamber, his lantern shaking in his hand. The pod before him pulsed with light, cracks spreading wider across the glass. Every hum from the machines made the ground tremble under his boots. It felt like the whole place was alive. He forced himself to take a step back, his eyes scanning the walls. Machines lined every corner, tall metal towers covered in wires and glowing veins. Dust clung to them, but they still breathed with faint light. He realized this chamber had been forgotten for centuries, yet it never truly died. It had been waiting. The symbols carved into the floor glowed stronger now, their faint blue light circling the pod like chains. The man crouched and studied them closer. The marks seemed to shift when he looked at them too long, curling into shapes that looked like eyes, like teeth, like claws reaching out. He pulled away quickly, his chest tight. A sudden hiss filled the air. The pod released a cloud of steam. The glass shook as if something inside was fighting to escape. He lifted the lantern higher, and for a heartbeat he saw it clearly. The figure inside moved, its long fingers pressed against the glass, its head turned slightly, and even though its eyes were closed, he felt the weight of its gaze on him. He whispered, "You're alive," his voice shaking. The pod answered with another hiss, liquid spilling from the cracks. The machines around the chamber whirred louder, lights flashing in sequence like signals. It was as if the place was sending a message far away. The man's mind screamed at him to run, to pound on the sealed staircase until his hands bled, but his body refused to move. Curiosity anchored him. He wanted to know what was trapped here, who had left it, and why it had been hidden under a lonely cabin in the woods. He stepped closer again, the glow from the pod painting his face in pale light. The alien's body twitched, its chest rising and falling slowly, breath fogging the glass. It looked weak but dangerous, beautiful but terrifying. He could see veins of silver beneath its skin, lines that pulsed like fire. Suddenly the lantern flickered, then died. The chamber fell into darkness except for the glowing machines and the pulsing pod. The man's heart hammered in his chest. Shadows twisted across the walls, and for the first time he felt sure he was not alone. He heard footsteps, soft and deliberate, echoing from somewhere behind the machines. He spun around, searching the dark. The glow revealed nothing. Yet the sound continued, closer, heavier, as if more than one set of feet moved through the chamber. His breath quickened, his hands trembled. "Who's there?" he called, his voice shaking in the vast space. The footsteps stopped. Silence crashed down again. Only the hum of the pod filled the air. Then the glass cracked with a sharp sound. A jagged line split across the pod. Glowing liquid streamed onto the floor, sizzling as it touched the strange symbols. The protective circle flickered, its light weakening. The man stepped back, panic rising. He could see the alien's hand now pushing harder, the long fingers clawing against the glass. Another crack spread, the sound echoing like thunder. The alien's chest rose sharply, its eyelids twitching, its lips parting as if it tried to speak. Machines around the room sparked. Flashes of blue light bursting like lightning, wires rattled. The hum became a roar. He covered his ears, but it filled his whole body. The ground shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. He stumbled but forced himself to stay upright, staring at the pod. Through the cracks in the glass, he finally saw its eyes open, glowing like molten gold. They locked onto him with a force that froze his soul. In that instant, he knew this was no ordinary being. It was powerful, ancient, and it had not been locked here for safety. It had been locked here because it was feared. The alien's lips moved again, No sound came at first, but then a voice filled his head, clear and heavy. "Human, you freed me," he gasped, dropping the lantern to the ground. His knees weak, his thoughts spinning. The pod shattered with a deafening crack. Shards of glass exploding outward. Liquid flooding the floor. The protective symbols dimmed and died. The figure stepped out slowly, its body trembling but strong, its golden eyes never leaving his. The man could not speak, his throat dry, his heart pounding like drums in his ears. He realized now that the forgotten chamber was not just a prison. It was a warning, and he had ignored it. The awakening. The chamber shook as the pod shattered. Shards of glass slid across the floor. Glowing liquid spread in a thin pool, steam rising as it touched the cold air. The man staggered back, his heart thundering, his eyes locked on the figure stepping out. The alien moved slowly, its tall body unsteady, yet every step was filled with power. Its skin shimmered between silver and pale blue, veins of light crawling beneath its surface. Its golden eyes blazed with a fire that did not belong to this world. The man could barely breathe. Every part of him screamed to run, but his legs refused to move. The alien fell to its knees, its hands pressing against the floor, the glowing liquid dripping from its body. It looked weak, fragile even, yet the weight of its presence crushed the air. It raised its head and stared at him, those burning eyes cutting through his soul, and then the voice came, not through ears but inside his mind. "You, human." The voice echoed inside his skull, heavy, ancient, filled with sorrow and anger. He gasped, clutching his head, his voice trembled as he whispered, "What are you?" The alien tilted its head as if surprised he could hear. "I am prisoner," the alien said in his mind, each word broken but clear, locked, forgotten. "But you opened the seal." It rose slowly to its feet, its body shaking but its golden eyes never leaving his. "Why did you come?" The man stammered, his throat dry. I only bought the cabin. I didn't know this was here." His words sounded small in the vast chamber. The alien stepped closer, its shadow stretching across the floor. "The cabin was built to hide me," the alien whispered into his thoughts. "Your kind were not meant to find me, not meant to touch the seal." Its gaze burned into him, and he felt both fear and shame. Machines around them sparked again. The hum grew stronger. The lights flared as if answering the alien's awakening. He looked around in panic. "What is this place?" he asked. The alien closed its eyes for a moment, breathing heavily, then it spoke again. "This is a cage, built by enemies who feared me, buried under your soil, hidden from the stars. They hoped I would fade. They hoped I would die." Its voice grew heavier, sorrow twisting into anger. "But now the signal is sent. They know the seal is broken. They will come." The man's stomach dropped. "Come, who will come?" he asked quickly, fear tightening his chest. The alien opened its eyes again, golden fire burning brighter. "Hunters," it said. "Killers from the dark between stars. They will come for me. And they will come for you." He stepped back, shaking his head. No, this is not real. I only wanted a quiet life. I only wanted peace." His voice cracked, echoing in the chamber. The alien tilted its head, almost curious. "Peace is gone, human. You touched the chain, you woke the lock. Now you are marked as well." The chamber groaned. Dust falling from the ceiling, the machines roared louder. The floor vibrated beneath them. The man clutched his lantern, though it was broken. His only comfort in the growing chaos. The alien stumbled closer, its hand reaching toward him, long fingers trembling. "Do not fear me," the voice said softly. "Fear them. For when they arrive, they will burn your forests, they will break your cities. They will hunt your kind as they hunted mine." His body froze as the alien's hand hovered inches from his chest. Glowing faint lines crawled up its arm, wrapping around its skin like fire. "You freed me," it whispered into his thoughts again. "And now, you must decide. Help me fight or die with the rest." The man shook his head, his heart racing. "Fight me, I'm no soldier." His voice broke. "I only wanted to be left alone." The alien's eyes softened. For the first time he saw something in them, not just anger or power, but pain, a deep loneliness that matched his own. The hum of the machines reached a peak. The chamber shook violently. Cracks split across the walls. Beams of light shot upward. The alien turned sharply, its gaze fixed on the ceiling. "They have seen us," it said. "The sky will answer soon." The man followed its gaze, terror filling him above the cabin, above the forest. The night sky flickered with strange lights, silent but growing brighter, like eyes opening across the stars. In that moment he understood. His lonely cabin was never meant to be his refuge. It was a doorway, and by opening it, He had changed the fate of more than just himself. The truth below. The man stood frozen as the chamber shook. The alien's golden eyes glowed brighter. The machine screamed with power, and the air tasted like metal and fire. He wanted to run, but the staircase above had sealed shut. He was trapped with this being, trapped with a truth too heavy for his mind. The alien turned slowly, its gaze sweeping across the chamber, its long fingers brushing the strange machines the moment it touched them. Sparks burst to life, long dead panels lit up. Lines of light raced across the walls, filling the space with a ghostly glow. The man stepped back, fear rising again. "What are you?" he whispered, his voice small and shaking. The alien paused, then looked at him, its expression unreadable. Its voice slid into his thoughts once more. "Heavy, calm, ancient, I was a soldier once," it said. "A guardian of a war your kind never knew. I fought in the dark between stars, where fleets burned and worlds fell silent, but my enemies, they were not like me, they were hungrier, crueler. They came not to rule, but to erase." The man swallowed hard, his throat dry. "And they put you here," he said quietly. The alien nodded, its eyes dimming with memory. "Yes, they bound me. They chained me in this cage beneath your soil. They marked this ground so no one would dare enter. But humans do not see the warnings. You build cabins on graves." The man's chest tightened. He thought of the lonely woods. The silence, the strange glow of the lock. All of it now made sense. It was never meant to be touched. Never meant to be found, he whispered. "Why here? Why on Earth?" The alien's gaze grew sharper, golden fire flaring in its eyes. "Because Earth was hidden. Your world was young, unmarked, forgotten by the stars, a safe place for a prison. They thought your kind would stay blind. They never imagined one of you would open the chain." The man's knees weakened. He grabbed the edge of a broken console for balance. "And now?" he asked softly, his voice shaking. "Now that I opened it, what happens?" The alien stepped closer, its shadow stretching long. Its voice echoed inside his mind with a weight that made his bones ache. "Now the signal has gone. The hunters know this place. They will come as they came for me. They will burn your forests, shatter your mountains, and harvest your kind. Your people will scream, and no one will answer." The man's breath caught in his throat. He imagined cities burning, skies filled with ships, and his people hunted like animals. "You can stop them," he whispered, his voice desperate. The alien tilted its head, its face unreadable. "I can fight," it said, "but I cannot fight alone. They are many, they are endless. They will not stop until I am taken, until you are ash. But if I stand with you, if you stand with me, we may wound them, we may hold them back." The man's heart pounded. "Me, I'm just one man, I'm not a soldier. I came here to escape everything, to live alone. I can't fight an army from the stars." His voice broke. The alien's gaze softened, a shadow of sadness passing through its golden eyes. "I too wanted peace once," it said, "but war found me as it now finds you. The choice is not yours to refuse, human. The choice is only how you will face it." The chamber groaned again, cracks running along the ceiling. Dust raining down, the machines roared like thunder. The alien lifted its head sharply, its voice hard. "They are close, I can feel them. Their eyes are on us even now." The man looked upward, through the ceiling, imagining the cabin, the forest, the night sky. He remembered the flickering lights he saw above the trees. He realized those lights were not stars, not lanterns, but watchers, ships in the dark sky waiting. Fear wrapped around him like chains, but beneath it something else stirred. A fire he had not felt in years, a voice inside whispered. "You opened the door, you cannot turn back now." He clenched his fists, his body trembling but his eyes steady. The alien stepped closer, its hand glowing faintly. It placed its palm against his chest, not with force but with strange care. Warmth spread through him, a spark of energy. "I will share my strength," the alien said softly. "But strength is nothing without will." "Will you stand, human?" the man gasped. The warmth flowing through his veins like lightning, his breath sharp, he met the alien's gaze. And for the first time he did not look away. "If they come for us," he whispered, "then I will not hide." The alien's golden eyes burned brighter, and the chamber itself seemed to respond. The machines roared in harmony, beams of light shooting upward, piercing the earth above. The man knew the forest was no longer safe. The world was no longer blind. The truth below had awoken, and with it came the hunters. The chamber roared like a storm. Beams of light from the machines shot upward, piercing the ground. The forest above shook as if the earth itself was crying out. The man shielded his face, dust raining down. His heart thundered in his chest. He knew whatever was happening could not be hidden anymore. The alien stood tall now, its weakness fading, golden fire blazing in its eyes. Its veins glowed brighter with every breath. It looked no longer like a prisoner but a warrior reborn. Its voice filled the man's mind, heavy and sharp. "They are here." The man turned his gaze upward. Through the cracks in the chamber ceiling, he saw faint light flickering in the night sky. Shapes moved between the stars. Black shadows gliding with silent speed. His stomach tightened, he whispered to himself. "Ships." The alien nodded slowly. "Hunters, they follow the signal, they bring fire if they land." "Your world burns." The man trembled, his legs weak. He had always wanted peace, a quiet life far from everyone. But fate had dragged him into this. Now the weight of more than his own life pressed on his shoulders. The alien extended its hand, long fingers glowing faintly. "Stand with me, human, fight with me, and perhaps your kind will live. Turn away, and this place will be your grave, their grave. Your world's grave." The words struck deep into him. The man closed his eyes. Memories of his old life flashing, his failures, his loneliness, his endless search for escape. He had thought the cabin would free him, but instead it bound him to something greater, something terrifying. He opened his eyes again, and for the first time his fear burned into resolve. He stepped forward, his hand shaking. Then he grasped the alien's arm. "I will not run," he whispered, his voice steady. "If they come for us, we fight." The alien's golden eyes blazed. Its voice softened in his mind. "Then you are chosen." Energy surged through his body. The warmth from before, now a storm of light. His veins burned but did not break. His vision sharpened, his breath deepened. He felt stronger, heavier, alive. The chamber floor split open with a thunderous crack. Hidden panels rose from the ground. Strange weapons and armor long buried now glowed with power. The alien guided him, placing a silver brace on his arm. The metal fused with his skin. A weapon hummed to life in his hand, light running down its barrel. Above, the night sky tore open. The forest glowed red as enormous shadows descended. Silent ships shaped like blades drifted lower, their lights cutting through the trees. The ground quaked as the first of them landed. The air filled with the hiss of burning metal. The man and the alien climbed the staircase that had sealed itself before. Now it opened willingly. The trapdoor burst open, and they stepped into the cabin. But the cabin was no longer a safe wooden shell. It trembled like a leaf in a storm, its walls rattling as the hunters drew closer. Through the window the man saw them. Tall figures stepping from the ships, their bodies dark and sharp, their eyes glowing like cold stars. They moved without sound, dozens, then hundreds, forming lines in the forest. The hunters of the alien now stood on Earth. His chest tightened, fear tried to return, but the alien's voice steadied him. "Do not fear their numbers. Fear their hunger, but know this, human, you are not prey. Not if you stand." The hunters raised weapons of black steel, humming with deadly power. The forest around them twisted under their presence. Trees withered, the air burned. The man raised his strange weapon, its glow fierce, his hands trembling but his stance unbroken. He glanced at the alien beside him, its tall form blazing with golden fire, the ground shaking under its steps. Together they stood at the cabin door, two figures against an army. The lead hunter stepped forward, its voice cold and sharp. "You should have stayed sealed," it hissed. Its gaze fixed on the alien, but then it turned, and its eyes locked on the man. "And you, human, you should never have opened the door." The man's grip tightened on the weapon, his voice steady now, louder than he thought possible. "Maybe I wasn't supposed to," he said, "but I did. And I won't let you take this world." The alien raised its hand, golden light bursting across the cabin. The hunters hissed and shifted, preparing to strike. The forest glowed with the clash of powers that had slept too long. The man's heart pounded, his breath sharp, his choice made. There was no turning back. The lonely cabin he bought in search of peace had become the battlefield where humanity's fate would be tested. And as the first blast of light and fire tore through the night, he knew the truth. The cabin was never his refuge, it was his destiny.